and good Wednesday, October the 3rd. It's 2018. Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle. Justin Kalen Hot Top, the Crew Chiefs box for you. Hope your day's going well.
That's right.
Thanks a lot for taking us along wherever you're going, whatever you may be doing. We greatly appreciate taking us along with you. Welcome into the program. Before we get too deep, let's get to the headlines for today.
All right, here are your headlines for this October 3rd on your Wednesday, brought to you by Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart, located on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs. The Cubs fall to the Rockies 2-1 in 13 innings last night. The Cubs are eliminated from the playoffs, and the Rockies advance to play the Brewers in the National League Division Series. Oakland Athletics and the New York Yankees square off tonight in the AL's version of the wild card, and the National Hockey League regular season starts tonight as well. Those are your headlines, brought to you by Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart, located on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs. Make sure you stop in for your hot breakfast, fill your gas tank, or hit up the daily lunch special. $4.99 today. Chicken cordon bleu, fries, and onion rings.
Can't beat it.
Best deal in town.
Can't beat it. What did you say starts tonight?
National Hockey League, NHL.
What is that? Oh, yeah. That's that sport that nobody watches.
Yeah, some people watch it, so I threw it in the headlines.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
You're always telling me, don't make headlines about me. I don't care about hockey, but
a
lot of people in the area do.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm just making fun of hockey. Making fun of hockey. The Cubs, man. Golly, I watched that game up till the time they tied it, and then I fell asleep. But Tim Kirchin from ESPN he gave a stat I saw in a highlight afterwards. 40 games this year. 40. The Cubs scored one or less.
Ooh.
40 times.
Not good.
40. 4-0. That means they had 39 opportunities to not even be in that stupid game they were playing. 39 opportunities to not be in that to not even be in that scenario, and failed.
It's pretty brutal. You got to score runs. Got to.
I don't know how you don't with that lineup. I'm not a fan of Joe Maddox, I'll tell you that.
Joe Madden,
rather.
Why?
He makes some moves that ever since the World Series game of the World Champion, when he brings him in way too early and left him in way too long, and he almost single-handedly blew the World Series. It worked out, but not because of his calls.
Yeah, a lot of the fans that I saw on Twitter last night are pretty over Joe Madden as well. There is a group of fans, I guess, that love Joe, and the players said after the game last night that they're going to fight for him to stick around because they like him as manager. And I mean, I think overall Joe Madden's done a pretty dang good job with the Cubs. I mean, a team that hadn't won a World Series in 110 years or whatever it was.
Yeah, but it's not Joe. It's the GM. That's the guy who put that team together, man.
Right.
What was it, Epstein? Theo Epstein?
Yep.
He put the team together. He put the players there to be put onto the field.
Well, that's the thing.
If you don't believe me, go back and watch the movie Moneyball. You remember that?
Yep.
Remember what that was about?
Yep.
They were 20 games out of first place, I think, or whatever they were. I know they won 20 in a row. They were way, way back. This is a true story. Last place. And Billy Beane, he had a system. He was trying to go on the, I forget the guy's names. They were just playing the numbers, trying to get runs, so many runs per game. And it worked. That was the first proven case of it, I guess. But yeah, it's no Cubbies in this October.
I'm okay with that.
The Yankees and the A's, that should be fun.
I thought it was going to be as well, but the A's are trotting out a reliever tonight. A guy that got cut in the middle of the season. They're going to give him the start tonight in New York.
So does that mean they're just saying, we don't need this game?
Seems like it. But they do need the game.
I was going to say this. They're out of the playoffs, right?
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure why they're going with him, but
are they going to start him and bring somebody else in? Are they trying to mess with? Yeah, I mean, is this strategy?
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how it plays out. Do they continue to go with their bullpen all game? Or like you said, do they bring in a starter at some point? All right, it's the last game of the year. You've got to go balls to the wall here.
I assume. Indiana's got a big game this weekend. They travel to Columbus, Ohio to take on the Ohio State University. The Buckeyes, number 2 in the country, and man, they are a daunting task. Yeah. They got a taste of what it's going to be like when they played Michigan State earlier in the season. They played a very, very effective front seven that did shut Indiana down. This week they're going to see a defense that's just as good, but better because they have a better secondary. But more importantly, they're going to see an offense they have seen nothing like. An offense that can run or throw. And I mean throw vertically. Yeah. Indiana is going to be challenged in the secondary. And although they have been playing well, they haven't been playing well against a team like this. No. So it could get... what's the spread? 25. Yeah, I'll take those points all day long.
For Indiana or Ohio State?
I'll give them up for Ohio State on that. If I was betting, yeah, that's not a lot. To me, that's not a lot of points for Ohio State to put up.
This one screams of a game Ohio State wins by 24.
Really?
Just because of the line. I don't know, though. Ohio State's a hell of a lot better than Indiana, a hell of a lot better than Michigan State. Indiana couldn't keep up with Michigan State.
I don't know that Indiana's going to be able to score.
No. And if they do score, the thing you mentioned, good quarterback play, can throw the ball, good running back play. You got J.K. Dobbins, who, in my opinion, top 3 running back in the nation. I mean, that kid's fast, agile.
Well, they got apparently the best 1-2 punch in the country. They got a pair of running backs. Their quarterback, he's playing lights out. On the program today, speaking of which, Alex Gleitman. He's from 247 Sports in Columbus. Beat writer for the Buckeyes. We'll get their perspective, as I try to bring you each and every week. Perspective from the other side. But they are loaded. Top to bottom, side to side, as always. Welcome to the big leagues. Welcome to the NFL. Matt Weaver's also on the program today. We'll talk a little more football with Matt. Most of the talking is settled down over Rutgers. I wonder what's going to be like after this week because they're going to get annihilated, I expect.
Oh, I mean, pretty par for the course what you expected coming in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This was a loss all the time. You're playing, which is sad. That is sad that you know that this is a loss, that there's no chance. And I rarely feel that way. I always can find it in my mind a way. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that. I see no direct path to victory here.
Well, that was pretty evident to me when I asked you last week how Indiana wins this game, and you said, if Ohio State fumbles it every time they touch it.
Yeah, if Ohio State doesn't show up, that's the only way. That is the only way. I don't know that they're going to be competitive in this game. We'll see. I hope that's not the case. They've got to have a running game for that to be the case. Forget the passing, forget the stretching the defense, which is desperately needed, which is what Ohio State is going to do to Indiana. They're going to stretch them every which way from Sunday. and I mean long, too. And guess what? Their quarterback, he's thrown 70% completion percentage. Oh, my. But he's not averaging 8 yards a pop. He's throwing it downfield. That's the difference. That's a difference maker.
Is it the fact that he can throw it downfield or the fact that he's got
both
more athletic receivers than Indiana's got?
No. Indiana's got fine receivers.
Yeah, but I mean, when you compare him to Ohio State.
That's not. No, Indiana has, their receivers are quality receivers.
I'm not debating that. I'm just debating they're a different level than Ohio State.
It has nothing to do with Indiana throwing the ball downfield. What the hell does that have to do with it? What does Ohio State's receivers have to do with whether or not Indiana?
If you got athletic, fast receivers, you can go get the ball. You can just lob it up there and go get it.
You don't think Indiana does?
They do, but not the same caliber.
Again, you're not. That does not make sense. You're saying they don't have it, and then you're like, well, it's not the same caliber. But it's not. Ohio State's caliber has nothing to do with what Indiana's offense is.
No, you missed my point.
Okay, please explain it because I did.
Just saying that Ohio State's receivers have the ability to go get the ball. They're just a little bit more superior athletically than Indiana's receivers.
I disagree
Indiana's
with that.
receivers can do the same, but not at the same level.
I disagree with that.
That's
Indiana's
fair.
receivers are of fine quality. Why the hell do you think that Ian Thomas is in the NFL? Why do you think that Osimi Cobbs Jr., where's he? In the NFL?
No.
Well, he's on his practice. He was on somebody's practice team. He's not on the practice team anymore?
May still be on practice team. Yeah. Cody Latimer's another one, though.
But he's all those guys. But Simi Cobb's on somebody's practice team. But anyway, why do you think Nick Westbrook was the leading receiver before he got hurt? They have the receivers. Luke Timian, Whop Filliar. They've got receivers. They've got it. That was one of their positives coming in. So no, that has nothing to do with the reasoning of Indiana not going downfield. I think we all know what the reason is. But moving forward, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. But I think it's going to be a tough road to hoe come Saturday when you can't do that. And not only that, Luke Timian and Whop Villar probably won't be playing.
Nope.
So now what are you going to do?
Well, Tom Allen brought that up a little bit in the press conference on Monday, I believe it was. With Whop and Luke being out, that gives you the opportunity to play a freshman like Miles Marshall, who we've talked about before on this program, 6'4", big guy, giving him an opportunity to go out there and learn. Whether they use him after his 4 games or not, using him now, it could be valuable for his future going forward.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you can get experience, it's great, and especially if you can get experience in a game like this. Yeah. This is game experience you definitely cannot mimic.
Probably not going to be a whole lot of fun out there for Miles Marshall, but looking back, I think on his career, when it's all said and done, big game for him.
Oh, it's a big game, absolutely. Playing against Ohio State in the shoe, over 100,000 people. Number 2 team in the country, team that will probably be playing for the national championship. Absolutely huge game for Indiana and every player. And it's an opportunity to grow, opportunity to see some positives, find some positives. That's a good point because it's an opportunity to find some new players, some guys that have some breakout performances, getting opportunities they hadn't gotten yet. But, yeah, we've got we'll hear from Coach Allen, and we'll hear from Coach Urban Meyer as well today on the program. Matt Weaver from Peegs.com's all along. Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports in Columbus, Ohio as well. Make sure you hit us up on the text line, 502-414-1450. We're coming right back here on Indiana Sports Beat.
Also told you that I like to bite. Well, yeah, I guess it's obvious I also like to write. All you had to do was give Humpty a chance, and now I'm gonna do my dance. The Humpty dance is your chance to do the hump. Come on. Yeah, sexy lady. Do the Humpty hump. Do the Humpty
If you're a homeowner and have storm damage to your roof, you want a hometown contractor you can count on and trust. Brooks Roofing of New Albany has been doing quality work since 2006. Check out their work for yourself at brooksroofingin.com. No job is too big or too small, commercial or residential. Brooks Roofing is probably working in your neighborhood right now. Visit brooksroofingin.com or call 812-868-ROOF. That's 812-868-ROOF. Brooks Roofing, the protection you need when nature strikes.
This is Jim Coyle. When I'm not on the road covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 on the northeast side of I-65 at Veterans Parkway in Clarksville. Bring the team in for that post-win meal in the family dining area or just meet friends for happy hour. Bubba's has bold burgers, hand-tossed pizzas, mouth-watering wings, and a list of select local craft brewers for the coldest beer in town. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Burgers, pizza, beer. Today's guest is brought to you by Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center, located 5 miles north of downtown Louisville, just off of I-65 at Veterans Parkway in Clarksville.
All my friends know the low rider. The low rider is a little higher.
You know what that means. It is a Chronic Tuesday. Our man Chronic Hoosiers along for the ride. How's it going, brother?
It could not be any better, man. Could not be better. Hoosiers are 4-1. It's officially basketball season right now. Times are good in B-Town, brother.
Weather is very perfect for a fall Bloomington day, Bloomington week. It's beautiful weather right now out there. And around.
You know what's even better about the weather? I just checked the forecast. I'm going to be in Florida in 4 days. That's the best weather ever.
Absolutely. So you're going to miss the Ohio State game. Well, not from you'll see it on TV, but coming up.
We'll probably be rolling up to the condo right about when it's finishing up. So I'm gonna be with Buck and Don on the radio. Is my best guess.
Not a bad place to be, but probably not. I don't expect that it's going to be a very good outcome for Indiana, especially after what happened up in Piscataway. They did get out of there with a win, their fourth win of the year, only two wins away from a bowl, but they did not do it in pretty fashion.
No, they absolutely did not. And, talk about a tale of two halves. You had a game that started off about as well as you could have asked for IU, but perplexingly, the defense continues to just lay an egg on the very first, one of the first two drives here. That seems to be their MO, is they're going to not provide a whole lot of resistance whatsoever. In this case, at Rutgers, it was in the very first drive. And then the Hoosiers proceeded to rattle off 24 straight points. They went touchdown, field goal in the first half, scored on every single drive. But you can almost look at that final drive of the first half where they had a touchdown called back. I believe there was a holding call. I can't remember if Ramsey connected with J-Shaun Harris, Westbrook. I forget who he hit. Took it to the house, had to bring it back. But that was really kind of the turning point for that offense, because from that point onward, they really weren't able to get a whole lot much of anything done in the second half. And fortunately, they were able to hold out against a team that was as limited as Rutgers was. But to go in the second after scoring on every single drive and go punt, fumble, interception, and then they just ran the clock out. It was about as ineffective as a team could be after being about as effective as the team could be. And the defense, again, continues to do their job. And I don't know how much of that late surge from Rutgers was just the defense being gassed because they were constantly being forced back into position, just letting up because of the lead. I'm not exactly sure what went on in the second half at Piscataway, but it certainly was the opposite of Coach Allen's mantra for the season, which was finish. Just finish the game. It's something the Hoosiers struggled mightily with last year, cost them a bowl opportunity. It wasn't fatal in this last contest, but it's certainly not something that's going to send you into Ohio State with a whole lot of promise. All that said, editor's note here, last time I rolled into Florida with the IU-Ohio State game on, Xander Diamont was working some kind of sorcery there in Ohio Stadium. So who knows what's in store.
Absolutely. I had hoped that they would at least be competitive in this game. This is not a game I ever thought that Indiana would have a shot in. It's on the road. I mean, Ohio State was known to coming into this season as being one of the, as they always are, but especially this year, as good as they are. They're number 2 right now, but they could be the best team in the country. We don't know. But so I never expected this to be a game Indiana would really have a chance at winning with the youth that they have going for them. So hopefully they can come out of this game healthy, get some things done, and move forward, because they have a winnable game the following week against Iowa. And with the guys like Luke Timian out right now, while Filliar, this is probably a great week to leave them sitting, get them healthy, bring them back in time for Iowa.
No, unquestionably. I think that's going to be one of the biggest things coming out of the Ohio State game, is just stay as healthy as you possibly can. I for the life of me, I don't see any way on earth how IU is going to manage to be very competitive in this game. Just the lack of vertical attack in the offense. The running game was able. I think they were 178 yards total in the game against Rutgers. 58 of that coming from Peyton Ramsey scrambling. It certainly wasn't necessarily a dominant running performance. They did get 2 of their touchdowns off of rushes, but those were from short range. I just don't see how anything IU has in its arsenal right now is going to be, at least offensively, is going to be anywhere close to effective against a defense as stout as Ohio State's. You hate to just sit there and look at a game and say this is an automatic loss, throw it away, pack it in before you ever even get to the stadium. But let's be honest here. This is one of the best teams in the country. This is a team that is stocked all the way across the line on offense and defense. I just, end of the day, try to play as respectable as you can, but let's just get everybody home healthy, because, like you said, homecoming the week following, they're 2 games away from bowl eligibility at this point. Statistically, they are still far more likely than not to become bowl eligible. But as we've often seen is the case, whether it be on the micro or the macro level with the football team like IU is currently comprised, the margin of error is going to be extraordinarily thin for them to have success. So at the end of the day, everybody that you bring to the stadium has, that's fit for playing has got to come home in the same condition, because otherwise you're just going to put yourself in a very untenable position with some far more winnable games in the future that are ultimately going to determine whether or not this team can finish, whether or not they can, attain their goal and get bowl eligible again.
And you talk about a margin of error that has been reduced. It has been reduced. Well, with Michael Penix obviously heading towards an apparent redshirt season, damn phone just came on. Have they narrowed that margin down even more so, because now you don't have a backup option really that gives someone something that is a different look or a look that can really be effective?
No, I think I struggled with this in the second half last weekend. This offense is what it is. It is not with Peyton Ramsey, and I don't want to be the guy that's constantly bashing him, because I do think he adds a level of dynamic to the offense with his ability to run the football in the RPO that does give them another dimension. I don't know that ability is enough to offset his inability to get the ball downfield with regularity. We saw a couple of instances where he had a couple passes that he sailed out of the end zone, overshot his receiver considerably on 2 occasions in the first half. Not particularly accurate, not particularly strong. We saw another couple of instances where, when the ball does travel 12, 15 yards out of his arm, it tends to float. It doesn't get there in a lot of hurry. And for defenses that can close, that are really strong, aggressive, have length, that's going to pose all sorts of problems. It's a situation, though, where I feel like they have tied one arm behind their back offensively by not at least considering Penix, especially in a game against Rutgers. If they were trying to get him experience, second half of that game is exactly the type of situation where you want to put him in, like we saw to start the season against Florida International. And based off that, it very much seems like more likely than not that absent an injury to Ramsey, you're probably not going to see Penix more than once, maybe twice, so as not to put his red shirt in danger. He's still kind of a break glass in case of emergency type usage right now. But with the limited view we've had into his capability, I think he brings a dynamic to this offense that it sorely needs for a number of reasons, not the least of which, because if you're going to achieve that run-pass balance that the staff has talked about trying to establish, unless you can get the ball beyond the chains with any regularity, or at least attempt to with confidence. And I think that's one thing that many people, both fans and opposing staff alike, have seen, is they don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to go long. So if you don't feel like they have that kind of confidence, why are you even going to bother defending against it when you know it's a risk that's not likely to come up? It's going to allow teams to cheat in the box. It's going to allow teams to press up a little tighter, knowing that those screens and the passes to the flat, some of the short crossing routes that this offense loves to run, you take that away, there's not a whole lot left else to it. It's just not that deep. It just doesn't have that many dimensions to it to truly open up the field. It's a disservice to the running game, and it's unfortunate. I think it's oftentimes a disservice to some of the receivers they have. I'd be curious to see if that doesn't come and bite them at the end of the year with some guys maybe looking for greener pastures, or at least looking for backfields. They're going to be more likely to get the ball downfield to them with a greater regularity.
Talking with Chronic Hoosier, and another fear is these teams, they know what it is. There's nothing secret about this offense, and they're just, like you said, they're just going to start squeezing more and more. But to me, it also brings up the fear of more injuries, because you got a lot more action taking place right there constantly in that smaller area. The linemen, are they going to be able to hold up over the course of the Big Ten season, because they're going to be getting pounded nonstop. They're going to be coming at them nonstop. And even the running game, it wasn't there that well the other day. They were playing Rutgers. Now they've got to play Penn State and Ohio State and Iowa and Michigan. And all these big bad boy teams that are for real. So I want them to do well. I wish them nothing but well and nothing but success for Coach Allen. But I just don't understand not using a weapon when it is obviously in need.
Right, you talked about the durability too, and I think it's a very valid point. When you look at three, let's say that IU has, just spitballing here, say they have 4 highly winnable games, at least as far as the percentages lay out. You got Iowa after Penn State, or after Ohio State rather, but 3 of the 4 remaining winnable games are all going to be the back of the season. That's how IU is going to close: Minnesota, Maryland, Michigan, Purdue. You circle the Minnesota, the Maryland, and the Purdue games as legit opportunities to get a win, potentially seal a bowl berth. You're going to be at your thinnest as from an injury standpoint by that point in the season. Again, it stresses the imperative nature of keeping guys available, because they just don't have that kind of a depth. And I think that's one of the things you're going to see against the Ohio State, is what happens in the Penn States and the Michigans, for that matter, is what happens in the third quarter when the contest is still potentially in doubt. And you're lining up with 4 of the 11 are going to be second string players. Teams like Michigan, teams like Ohio State, teams like Penn State, they don't suffer the type of drop off that teams like IU do when you get that deep into your depth chart, when you start bringing in a lot of the backups, a lot of the reserves, whether it be just to give guys a breather or because of injury. That's often been where IU gets exposed, is when you have to start getting down into the depth chart and doing it multiply across the line. This is going to be one of those situations where if they can't make it to the final stretch, to the home stretch of the schedule, with as much starting depth as possible, that's when things really start to get a little squirrely for IU historically.
Good news, Chronic, is, as you mentioned, basketball season. Hoosier Hysteria kicked off on Saturday, and even though you don't get to see much at all from that scrimmage, it was not much at all. I saw a little bit. Devontae Green, I came out of media day seeing him as someone who had this air of confidence, and he played just like that. Made a couple of nice passes. Once again, this was just a knock-around scrimmage, but he made some nice passes. They looked in sync. They looked like they played well together, and they looked like they were having fun together.
I tell you what, you talk about something to be seen. That's exactly what I walked away from Hysteria. That was just a spectacle for the eyes. That was something else. The graphics they had going on, production value of this Hoosier Hysteria by far, just nothing even remotely close to what we've ever seen before. And you know, I felt that was representative of what they put on the court. That was an extremely deep team. The link that Archie's working with this year, I'm incredibly perplexed just to figure out what kind of rotation he's going to end up running, because right now, you know, and obviously this is kind of a throwaway scrimmage. It's just a public run, just so that people can lay eyes on these kids. They get to put on the candy stripes for the first time. I left pretty impressed. You look at where they were this time last year to where they are right now. I think what we've seen pretty much across the board, the returning players certainly look bigger, physically, muscularly bigger, just more developed. The incoming class, the freshman that he's got right now, not the least of which being Race Thompson. He absolutely floored me. This looks like a kid that's going to be able to come in and really get into the mix right out of the bat, or right out of the box.
X factor, man. He is the X factor.
Oh my goodness! You know, you look at some of those games where perhaps Juwan Morgan got boxed in a little bit last year because he was, you know, largely the sole focus defensively. You're not going to be able to do that with the type of lineup Archie's going to be able to put out there. You're not going to have a lot of of stepping down as far as the physicality whenever he has to go take a breather. I think you've got no less than 10, probably 12 people who should legitimately be competing for minutes. I think the competition, the internal competition, is going to be tremendous for this team, something that they did not have in years past. I was absolutely floored. I felt like it was one of those games where perhaps the link that was on both sides kind of kept the paint cleaned up. We didn't see a whole lot of spectacular drives, not a lot of stuff getting mixed up in the lane. Evan Fitzner, I felt, was true to form, or as advertised. He was out there absolutely stroking it. This is going to be a team, you know, we'll see what the point guard play looks like when they're going up against other high-level guards. I felt like Romeo was a little muted, but that was to be kind of expected with as much was going on out there. I think more than anything, what's going to be key for this team is really figuring out what kind of a rhythm it wants to play with, as far as its tempo up and down, as far as its ability to keep the ball moving around, because, you know, no matter who's out there, I think one thing that's going to be, that was apparent leaving the gym on Saturday, there's going to be a lot of guys out there that can score the ball in a lot of different ways. And if the team is unselfish, if they're willing to share the ball, keep it moving, you know, make the next pass to hit the open man, there's going to be some kind of offense to watch this year, which is a sight for sore eyes after some of the scoring troubles the Hoosier had last year. And I think more than anything as well, the talent he's got out there is going to be able to take his defense to a whole other level. You certainly didn't seem to have any of that, you know, the blank stares when people were trying to figure out what's his pack line supposed to be all about. I felt like obviously the veterans knew what they were doing out there, but the rookies seemed like they were pretty much up to speed as well. So I'm super excited. I think this is going to be a fun basketball season once again in Bloomington.
Looking forward to a Chronic Hoosier. Appreciate you joining us as always, man. Look forward to it next week. Oh, you won't be here next week. You'll be sitting on a beach, unfortunately, so we have to wait 2 more weeks before we get another dose of Chronic.
I'll catch you homecoming week, brother.
All right, man. Have a great one. We'll talk to you. Enjoy your vacation.
Will do. Be good.
Chronic Hoosier joining us, courtesy of Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center. Whether it's one truck or the entire fleet, Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center has got your company covered for sales or service. They've got locations in Louisville and Clarksville. Give John or Aaron a call. Specialists in Volvo, Emo, Cummins, and Mack, but they take care of everything. We'll be right back with Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier here on Indiana Sports Beat.
Got a problem with your big truck? Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center is here to help. For over 30 years, truck drivers and fleet operators have depended on their great service center off I-65 in Clarksville. And now you can get the same level of service, repairs, and parts selection that's been offered for generations and save on bridge tolls with their new location on the Outer Loop in South Louisville. They're an authorized Mack, Volvo, and Hino dealer and service center, but they service all makes and models of trucks. Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center.
This hour of Indiana Sports Beat is brought to you by Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center. With locations in Louisville and Clarksville, sales or service, they've got you covered. Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Foyle here on this Hump Day.
Hump Day.
Almost left that out.
I was wondering.
October 3rd, 2018. Justin Kalen, Hot Tops, Crew Chiefs box for you.
That's right.
Lots on the program today, as always. Matt Weaver from Peegs.com will be joining us. Of course, we'll be talking football. He is the football guru for Peegs. Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports in Columbus, Ohio, beat writer for the Ohio State Buckeyes, will be joining us as well as give you a perspective from the opposite side.
Be interesting to hear his thoughts on Indiana and where they stand.
Yeah.
Like, is Ohio State looking at this game like Indiana fans were looking at the Rutgers game?
Kind of how I was thinking. Because the roles have reversed. Definitely reversed. Big news, though. Well, potentially big news. Morgan Ellison is practicing with the team. I had heard that a week or so ago. I didn't mention it, but still no word on anything on if he will remain on indefinite suspension, which is what he currently is. Just no word whatsoever. So, be interesting to see. They could certainly use it because the running game has kind of stalled as they have gotten into Big Ten play, but of course that may not be a big coincidence since they're getting into Big Ten play. Again, hence why I think the offense could use a little boost, so to speak.
And Tom Allen talked about it in his press conference this week, the struggles with the O-line and the running backs as well, so let's hear that.
Well, I think that, we had 1 3-and-out in the second half, and that was the first one. And we ran the ball 3 times there and didn't get a first down. So that set a bad tone. I was disappointed in that and frustrated by that. But we were 50-50 throwing the ball, running the ball the rest of the half. I think they have to, they got to be more consistent. To me, they played, did some good things in the first half, but it has to continue. It's got to be, we played a game for 60 minutes. And so that's a group that I feel like has got to continue to keep working. And a lot of it was communication. I was working together on certain calls and checks, adjustments we make up front. Didn't think our running backs did a great job, and our staff would agree, of reading their blocks. That happened multiple times in this game, more than it's happened the entire season. So we working on that, getting those things cleaned up. So those guys are still young back there that we're relying on to run the football, and they're really just 2 true freshmen doing most of the running at this point. And so I think it was a combination of both of those, So I would just say it continues to be a point of focus for us, because you have to, as I always will say, that you run the football and stopping the run is where it starts and stops, offensively and defensively. So it's a group that we have a lot of confidence in, and they need to keep progressing together and keep playing better each and every week, and going against one of the best defensive lines in the country on Saturday with Ohio State. So, it's got to continue to be a point of focus, and got to create some creases for our guys and allow them to be able to effectively run the football. But, Peyton was part of that too. So he was effective and take some pressure off those guys in some ways. But, they didn't play, and Coach Hitler would be the first one to tell you that second half wasn't to our standard of offensive line play, and we got to improve. And we actually looked at it as I sat in there with them, watching a lot of the second half plays and different things we did. And so working through all that together. So we're all in it. We're all locked arms side by side, getting everything fixed. And getting ourselves in position to keep winning games.
Yeah, I'd agree. Unfortunately, the one thing that I think is not good is that's something you want to hear after the first or second game, not the fifth.
Right.
We're 5 weeks in, man, into the season. Now they're having problems? Well, they're having problems because you're not playing Florida International anymore. You're not playing Ball State anymore. You're not playing a depleted Virginia team anymore. You're playing in the Big Ten. Even on the lowest level of the Big Ten, it's big boy football. I don't think they were ready for big boy football.
They often aren't.
Well, and hence that creates a debate. You got people who want to see better, who want to see more, who think that they could be better than what they're being right now. And that's, now I'm not saying, the go off on the extreme and who want craziness. But just to be better is not asking for much because this team should be better. I think they're underachieving.
Especially the offensive line. I mean, we've talked about it at nauseum in the offseason that was the most experienced unit coming back. They were the unit that we expected to have success. They've been through Big Ten seasons. Every one of those guys on the offensive line has been through a Big Ten season. They know how hard it is. So for them to take a step back after playing the cupcake schedule in the beginning part of the season, a little worrisome.
Yeah, and the easy part of the schedule's over.
Yeah.
There are no easy ones from here on out. The absolute easiest part of their schedule is over. The 4 easiest teams they will play all season, they've played.
They beat them.
And they beat them.
But
of course,
there's no more of them.
Of course, they beat all of them except for one at home. That's not true. They beat 2 of them on the road.
Yeah.
But it just gets tougher. And those other teams are getting better each week, too. Those other teams are Big Ten teams, too. So you got to be ready. And Morgan Nelson coming back, that would sure help.
Yeah.
It would have to. But if they can't get the holes for him, if they can't get if the line's not operating effectively, if they have no running game, it's not going to matter. You can't run Morgan Ellison if you're not throwing the ball, if you're not opening holes. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Ellison coming back. It really doesn't matter who it is. Him and Stevie Scott are pretty comparable running backs. If Stevie Scott's not having any luck, what makes you think that when Morgan Ellison comes back, holes are just going to automatically appear for him? I mean, the offensive line has got to be better, no question.
Colts and the Patriots locking horns tomorrow night, man.
Used to be such a good game.
Well, it's a good rivalry, but who knows? I mean, maybe this will be a good game. New England is not exactly setting the world on fire. And in pro football, you just never know. Unfortunately, this game is on the road for the Colts. Don't recall them ever having a good run up in sunny old New England.
Yeah, it's likely going to get pretty ugly tomorrow.
Hasn't treated them too well. I don't know if it's going to get ugly, but it hasn't treated them well, that's for sure.
If I had some extra money to throw on it, I would bet that it got ugly.
What's the spread?
It's I think 10.
Holy moly. That's a lot for a pro game.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty par for the course for the NFL this year. There's already been a couple 10s. There was a 13.5-point spread last week. The Vikings over the Bills 2 weeks ago were a 17.5-point favorite.
Wow. Yankees and the A's tonight. Looking forward. Those games, it was fun. It was an exciting game last night, that one-game wild card. I mean, it goes into extra innings.
Yeah.
Who knows what you get tonight?
5-hour game last night. A lot of people weren't happy with that.
Well, nobody's ever happy with a 5-hour baseball game.
I'm glad I didn't stay up.
I'm glad I fell asleep by accident.
I think I fell asleep in like the 5th inning, 6th inning.
It was tied when I fell asleep, but it wasn't the 9th yet. And how about the Yanks? I saw someone post something about the Yankees and their, multi-billion-dollar salaries. He goes, the A's can send their happy asses home in one game. That's the truth. They can. the most powerful team in probably all of professional sports, can be sent packing with one game tonight.
Historically.
Historically what?
Most powerful team.
Oh, yeah.
Not this year.
Oh, correct.
JR text into the show, 502-414-1450 if you want to do the same. He said, I'm pretty sure before the MSU game, Justin said he could see IU winning 9 games this year. Still going with that prediction. No, I'm not.
How you like me now? Thanks a lot for keeping track.
I think I might have even said at the beginning of the year when I saw the schedule that Indiana could maybe win 9. But, I mean, it's like every other year.
They could have. They could have won 9 games.
Absolutely.
That's what's so aggravating. They've already got 4 in the bank. They could have beat Maryland for sure. Could have beat Minnesota for sure. Could have beat Purdue. There's 7. Could have beat Iowa. That's 8. Who's the 9th game?
Yeah, I don't know. 9 was a stretch all along.
Well, I'll tell you what. They could have beat Michigan State.
Yeah, that's probably who it was, yeah.
Hell, they lost by a score. Or, well, it was 2 scores, but yes, that's a game that was winnable. Still was winnable with an offense. So, there you go.
Short answer, JR, no.
So, there's your 9 games.
Luckily to get to 6.
Oh, absolutely lucky to get to 6. Do they get to 6? That's the question. Do they get to 6 now? Do they beat Maryland? Do they beat Minnesota? Do they beat Purdue? Those are your 3 spots for a win. Iowa's still an outside shot. It's a home game. This is not the Iowa team of old. Their defense is not great.
They just climbed
or
in the
their
top.
Offense is not great.
They just climbed in the top 25.
Yeah, well, that's because they're playing in the weakest division in college football. Wow, what a conference! You have one of the strongest divisions and one of the weakest divisions. But yeah, they don't need Big Ten does not need the realignment. How about Mitchell Page, man? We mentioned it before, but his season is now officially over. Chatting with him last night, this morning. He's on his way back from Germany. I think he's probably home by now. They were in the playoffs, the semifinals, did not make the championship game, unfortunately. But
did he do any good?
Mitchell this year, he led every category there was to lead. I don't have that post pulled up.
I got you right here.
But I know he led in touchdowns, yardage, receptions. Just you read it off. You've got it in front of you.
Yeah, he led the league in touchdowns at 29, receptions at 136, receptions per game, 8.5, receiving yards, 2,070, receiving yards per game, 129.4, and scoring, 174. And the thing about him leading all those categories, second place guy in every category was nowhere close. I think the second place guy in terms of touchdowns at 21, 8 behind.
It was probably all different people too.
Yeah,
they're mostly different.
So absolutely incredible season. Well, I don't care where you're playing, and if you can perform like that athletically, you're doing something right.
Man, if he was a little taller, he'd be in the NFL. That's the only reason he's not in the NFL. Which does not to say he could not play in the NFL. I think he could, but they get this mindset of has to be this, got to be this. You got to be 6'3", blah, blah, whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Oh, he's only 5'7"?
Dude's a bad man.
He's only an inch taller than me. He is little.
He is a bad man. Look what he does. He had a post out yesterday, I think something he wrote that's pretty cool. Talks about his journey, making it from a walk-on to a scholarship player for Indiana. Did you see that?
Mm-mm. I saw it. I didn't read it, though.
You laziness.
I'll read it today. No, it looked like a good article.
How could you not read that?
Blew
it right up. Yeah, I can't get it pulled up quick enough, but
we need to unplug the internet or what? We having some internet issues today?
Yeah, I think so. We've got to take a break. We got plenty more coming back. Matt Weaver's on the program today from Peegs.com. Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports. from the Ohio State University beat writer. That and lots more right here on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle. We're coming right back.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
This hour of Indiana Sports Beat is brought to you by Brooks Roofing. Brooks Roofing is an Indiana contractor with over a decade of service. Find Brooks Roofing at brooksroofinyin.com. They're probably working in your neighborhood right now.
Couldn't get a ticket.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat here on Big X. Jim Coyle sitting here with you. Justin Kalen, high top the Crew Chiefs box. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks a lot for taking us along wherever you're going, whatever you may be doing. We appreciate you taking us along for the ride. Hit us up on the text line, 502-414-1450. Got Matt Weaver coming up on the program today from Peegs.com. Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports in Columbus, Ohio, beat writer for the Ohio State University. Make sure you like or follow us on Facebook. You can find the show each day on podcast replay on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, or IndianaSportsBeat.com. Check us out. Before we get any deeper, let's get to the headlines.
Here are your headlines for this October 3rd on this Wednesday, brought to you by Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart, located on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs. The Cubs fall to the Rockies 2-1 in 13 innings last night. Cubs are eliminated, and the Rockies advance to play the Brewers in the National League Divisional Series. Oakland Athletics and the New York Yankees square off tonight in the American League's version of the wild card game. Liam Hendricks, the pitcher for the Athletics. Luis Severino going to get the nod tonight for the Yankees. And the National Hockey League regular season starts tonight as well. Those are your headlines for this October 3rd on this Wednesday, brought to you by Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart, located on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs. Make sure you stop in for your hot breakfast, fill your gas tank, or hit up their daily lunch special today. Chicken cordon bleu, fries or onion rings for $4.99.
Sounds delish. Big program today. As I said, Matt Weaver from Pigs.com will be coming. Alex Gleitman, beat writer from the Ohio State University, along as well.
God, I hate that. I don't know why that bothers me so much, but I absolutely hate the Ohio State University. Why do they have to be the?
Because they thought of it first.
It's outrageous. And then when they do their stupid cheer, they cheer OHIO. It's a completely different school. Completely different school. I hate Ohio State.
Tell me how you really feel.
I hate them.
Why? Well, you better get used to them, because let me tell you, that's going to be the basketball battle.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. That's going to be a good one.
I mean,
for years.
Archie Miller and Chris Holtman. Holtman doing a tremendous job already. It's going to that's going to be those are the two schools that you're going to see battle.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know what's going to happen to poor old Purdue. They'll be forgotten.
As long as Matt Painter got. It's been there a long time.
Yeah, he's not going to go anywhere. Surely to God, after 100 years of basketball and nothing, they know that they're not going to win anything. So their expectations should be muted.
Let's just stop trying. We don't need a good coach.
So, just leave it to the professionals, so to speak. Ohio State, Indiana that's going to be just a year in year out war, a battle, a recruiting battle, year in year out.
Speaking of basketball, Tim T texted in 502-414-1450 if you would like to do the same. Said, so there was a picture, I think it was Armand Franklin and Trace Jackson Davis. Armand was saying to Davis, stop playing. Was he saying cancel your last visits and just commit to IU because he knows that's where he wants to go?
Yes.
Yeah.
He just saying, come on, man, let's get it on.
Quit teasing. Basically, is how I.
That's
how I read
That's it. Just stop playing. Come on, let's go. Let's just get it.
Yeah, and Trace Jackson Davis will not cancel his visits, but
I doubt it. But there was also a conversation shown being had between Keon Brooks and Romeo and Rob Finney, but that was in 247 with our guys friends from Peegs.
Romeo hosted him.
Yeah, really talked about how Keon was listening and paying attention to the message Archie was delivering, and that was the same message that Romeo delivered, and he found that to be consistent and a good thing. That hey, he's telling him the same thing he told me, so it's got to be true. He's not. He knows that he's getting the truth. They're both going there.
You would think.
Yeah, they're both going there.
Keon, a little bit more.
He's going to Indiana.
Not sure, but
he's going to Indiana.
I'm hoping
he's going to Indiana. I just wish they would just go ahead and commit and get it done with, so we can stop, so we can talk about other stuff.
Well, we should be nice and warmed up after Romeo last year.
Speaking of other stuff, we've got a football game against the Ohio State University this week, as Justin loves to hear it. Tom Allen and J-Shaun Harris. They were. We've got some sound from them, I believe.
Yep.
Who are we hearing first?
J-Shaun asked basically what it was like and how he was able to fill in the receiving role like he needed to do last week with Wap and Luke being down. So let's hear that.
Very, happy with how everyone has responded to those, two key players for us, being down temporarily. And, I'm just happy we went out there and, showed, to everyone that we can continue to build and continue to be great, as a receiving core. And now we just have to continue to focus on the little things and, continue to improve it as we go on with our games.
J-Shaun, you come back from Rutgers with a win, which is the most important thing, certainly, but it just seemed, talking to everybody else, that there's certainly a hunger to want a little bit more, a far from perfect ball game. Just talk about the mentality of the team as you come back and get ready for another week of practice.
Oh, for sure. We feel like we left, some plays out there, and, as a unit and as a team, we feel like we didn't finish. And, coach has been harping on that, and, we're going to continue to focus on the little things once we get out to practice so we can, once we get later in those games, finish.
J-Shaun, the last few weeks we've seen you more in that slot receiver area, obviously many punt returns in the middle of all that, but you get in the end zone as a wide receiver this past week. Just talk about the gratification you have going out there and contributing maybe more so on the offense than the special teams we've seen earlier.
It felt great, finding the end zone again. That was, my first time since freshman year, so that felt pretty good. Felt, heartwarming, but the crowd was a lot silent, so that was. It didn't, feel like the great, that we usually experience here when we play at home. But, it felt awesome, to be open and, have Peyton find me in the end zone. So hopefully we can continue to, build on from that.
A road win in the Big Ten Conference is never easy. You get one this week. You get another chance here coming up this coming week against the Ohio State Buckeyes as a veteran, a guy who's been to, I'm assuming, every Big Ten venue by this point. What do you tell the guys about approaching an atmosphere like you're expecting on Saturday?
Yeah, it's all about our attitude and effort. We can't go in there looking at those guys like, there's, some huge people. We play in the Big Ten East. We face, big-time opponents each and every week. So we have to continue, focus on the little things throughout this week, be very detailed, and go in there and attack them like we were attacking the other team.
J-Shaun Harris, normally he is the guy that for returning punts for Indiana. Very successful at that. Has been through three ACL surgeries. He's back from his third one right now, and he comes back. He's already returned a punt for a touchdown this year. Had two to go back last year. One of the tops in the country. Been pressed into the service in the receiving corps, being the injuries to Luke Timian, Wap Villar. But do you notice you keep hearing Wap Villar, Luke Timian, and now J-Shaun? Do you notice you're not hearing the wideouts' names hardly at all? Do you know why? Because they don't get the ball. Because they run patterns beyond 10 yards, unfortunately. Therefore, that's out of the throwing lanes. Just saying.
Yeah, to be honest, you haven't heard a whole lot of Nick Westbrook this year.
That's because he generally runs outside of, I know. It's just aggravating. I try to get off of it. I don't want to talk about it. It drives me insane. I don't want to sound like I'm Debbie Downer. It just, I don't get it.
Well, let's hear what Tom Allen thinks about J-Shaun Harris in the receiving game and how he can help Indiana.
I tell you, just the kid just never ceases to impress me. I know returning punts is one thing that he does extremely well and been very good at, but to be able to, play the number of snaps it takes to be a receiver in both preparation and during game day, with all of his history with his knees and all, that just a tremendous, once again, testament to his perseverance and his toughness and his fight. Just got so much to him in his core character that, and this team you just trust him, you count on him, you depend on him, and he comes up big for his teammates. He makes great decisions back there with handling. They're always trying to kick the ball away from him, and whatever it's Aussie kicks or different, trying to get on the ground and roll. I understand all that. So, but he handles those well, and so you trust him with all that, and then just making plays, critical third down catches, several of them again, and we need him. He's a valuable part of our team, and with having Luke and Wap down last week, that was huge for him to step up, and that may have to continue, and the whole group's going to have to keep doing that, until we get those guys back on track and back healthy. So just a valuable part of our football team in so many ways, and just can't be more, I've said it before, but I'll keep saying it, can't be more happy for a kid to be having the success he's having, as hard as he's worked and what he's overcome. It's great to see.
We'll talk about that more with Matt Weaver when he comes on from Peegs.com, but that's a telltale sign for you right there. The entire offensive passing game is running through Luke Timian now that he was hurt. Then it was Wap Filliard now that he's hurt. They got to bring somebody else in. They got all these great wideouts that you're not hearing their names, not getting used. Top receiver from 2 years ago. Never hear his name hardly. Donovan Hale, where'd he go?
Yeah, he fell off.
Well, he didn't fall off.
No, true.
He's downfield. He can't. He can't be seen. He's outside of the 10-yard bubble. It's like a haze. It's a fog. We got to take a break. When we come back, we do have Matt Weaver coming on the program from Peegs.com. We'll talk about the Ohio State game coming up. Stay tuned. Indiana Sports Beat. Jim Coyle coming right back.
If you want to get your day off to a good start, then stop at Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs. While you're filling your gas tank, you could fill your own tank with a hot breakfast or try one of Billy Joe's daily lunch special. Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart opens at 5 a.m. and everything is made fresh daily. And if you bring your own mug, coffee is only 50 cents. And Billy Joe's also has free air. The best place to start your day is at Billy Joe's Gas and Food Mart on Highway 150 in Floyd's Knobs.
Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Jim Coyle sitting in with you, joined now by Matt Weaver from Peegs.com. Matt, how's it going, brother?
I'm doing okay. How you doing?
Cannot complain as we have hit the midpoint of the week. Hump Day is here, and we've got more games coming up this weekend. Unfortunately for Indiana, they have a game against one of, if not the most talented team in the country in the Ohio State Buckeyes, as the number 2 team will await Indiana at the Horseshoe.
Yeah, it's I guess the one silver lining you might have for Indiana is they had such an emotional and hard-fought game this past Saturday up, in Happy Valley at Penn State, that maybe you're hoping for a little bit of a letdown, but even with a letdown, they're still so good that it's going to be really tough. I mean, I think this week you never hate to go in saying, kind of giving up or whatever, but I think this week's about survival. Try to come out of it as healthy as possible. Don't get too banged up, and try to give them your best shot and move on to Iowa.
Yeah, how hard is that going to do when you're already banged up? Wap Filliard, Luke Timian already sidelined with injuries. I'm sure there's others as well, but they're already kind of banged up. The line has not been holding so well. it's going to be tricky to get through just to get to Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what their game plan is for that. For me, I mean, as a coach, you never want to wave the white flag. Obviously, I mean, you want to try to go in, you want to try to win every game, no matter how hard it's going to be. But I think you got to think big picture too. For me, I would think big picture with guys like Wap and Timian. And if they're a little iffy or a little questionable, I'd hold them out. I mean, I don't, if you hurt them worse and then they're not available for a game against Iowa, which is winnable, that could come back to bite you. So, I mean, to me, if a guy can play and is not in danger of really making it worse, then play him. But, if he's a little iffy or questionable, from my point of view, I would hold guys back if I could.
Oh, absolutely. There's no way I would play those guys in this game. They've gone from being a plus 20-point favorite on the road, the biggest spread they've had in 20 years, or plus 17 rather, to a 25-point underdog the following week. That doesn't happen very often.
No, that's an awful monumental swing. But you're going from probably the worst. I don't think it's probably. I think that Rutgers is the worst team in the conference. To there's no doubt that Ohio State, or at least they seem to be. I mean, they beat Penn State, and I think I think it's pretty safe to say they're the best team in the conference. So that swing is. It just shows I guess it shows the disparity between the top and bottom of the Big Ten.
Right, and then Indiana, it's got to be tough for them going into being that favorite and then going in to play the worst team and one of the worst teams in football and basically laying an egg. And now you got to face a daunting task on the road again in front of another 110,000 people. It's going to be a rough day.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I don't. We can motivate. You can have all the motivation you want, and Ohio State can have as much of a letdown as you want. The bottom line is their talent level is just off the charts. I mean, they're so talented everywhere. I mean, they lose Nick Bosa and they bring in a guy like that Chase Young who made a bunch of plays against Penn State, made the game-winning tackle on the 4th and 5 call. When Penn State ran the ball. I mean, they've just got guys waiting that are just almost as good as the guy in front of them. And the guy in front of him is probably an All-American type player. So, as far as the Rutgers game, I thought the first half, I thought the offense was. There were some nice play calls. They did some different things, some creative things. We saw they were going to do a halfback throw with Reese, and he ended up getting 18 yards out of it when nobody was open. They tried a flea flicker, but then in the second half, it was just not enjoyable to watch. It was bad football.
Yeah, and let me go back for a second to those trick plays. I remember when they ran them. I think they ran back-to-back trick plays, and if not, it was 2 out of 3 plays. But that's the first time I remember seeing anything like that all year, and the first thing that dawned on me was, wow, this probably could have been useful in the Michigan State game, not in a game you're up 3 touchdowns on the worst team in football. I don't get that. What in the world? Why wouldn't you use that when you really could use it?
It's a great question, and I was thinking the same thing. I mean, part of me was like, okay, this is nice. You're doing something a little bit different, but then part of me was like, the way Michigan State was playing you last week with, the week before, as aggressive as their front seven was being, running some kind of a double reverse where you have Reese throwing the ball might have really worked because they were really being, really coming after you, coming off the edges and pinning the ears back. The flea flicker might have worked too because, they were basically walking their safeties up and you might have got somebody behind them. But, so I guess on the one hand, I guess it was nice to see it. I just don't understand why you showed it against Rutgers, especially when it was a 24/7 game. But, that's the coach's decision.
And that's something that some plays that I think would have been handy to have in your pocket for, say, the Iowa game. A game that's winnable and that you're going to need everything you can use to win. It just the play calling just continues to baffle the mind. But then there's reasoning, I guess, for the very, very morbid play in the second half. In essence, was protecting Ramsey. What the hell are they going to do this week for 4 quarters?
Yeah, I mean, request that they have a running clock. I'm not really sure what you can request NFL type rules where even on first downs the clock keeps running. I'm not sure. I mean, I think the other thing about the Rutgers game that to me was so baffling, and me and you have talked about this off air before, is you come out 24/7, you get the ball to start the second half on the road against the worst team in maybe Power 5 worst team. I think they are, but definitely the worst team in the Big Ten. That's the perfect spot to start Michael Penix to start the second half. Even if it goes sideways, he has a bad throw or something happens, you still got a 3-score lead. I don't, and I've said it. To me, it looks like they're redshirting him. I personally don't understand that decision. If you're Indiana and you have a talent like Michael Penix at quarterback, the only reason why you redshirt him is when the other guy is, that much more, that talented or more, and that's not the case. I mean, if you think that Peyton Ramsey is going to be your starting quarterback for the next couple of years, I disagree with that. I 100%. I don't see that happening. So to me, getting him these snaps this year is really valuable, and that was a perfect opportunity to do it. I don't understand it, but like I said, it's the coach's decision.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've brought up is not only this year, I think that they would have been a wash this year. I don't think that maybe they may have won an extra game. Who knows? They may have done a little bit better. But it's next year. They would have been so far ahead for next year. And now they're going to be starting at ground zero because everyone's expecting Penix to be that guy in the future. But why not now? Because he would have been so much further along next year had he gotten all these snaps.
Yeah, and I'm not. I mean, I've said I think he could. To me, I thought he was good enough to be the starter, but I was okay with him not. But to me, you've got to get him. You got to get him in almost every game, and that was the perfect opportunity. I mean, like I said, 24/7. You get the ball to start the second half. And I come out and let him do his thing. And you mentioned the play calling. I mean, I love Tom Allen. I think he does a lot of great things, but sometimes I think you trust your defense a little bit too much. I mean, you're up 24/7. You got your foot on their neck. You got to go ahead and stomp down on it and in that game. You got to come out playing the way you did in the first half and throwing the ball a little bit and being ultra aggressive. They ran the ball 4 straight times. On the first drive, they went 3 and out, and then ran it a 4th straight time when they got the ball back again. And it just kind of, the team kind of went into like a fog almost, and gave Rutgers a little bit of life. And luckily Rutgers was so bad that they made it interesting, but they weren't able to complete the comeback. But against better teams, that's if you fortunate enough to get that kind of a lead against a better team, that's going to cost you a game.
Talking with Matt Weaver from Peegs.com, and I mentioned also they have played the absolute easiest part of their schedule. There is not an easy game left. I mean, Minnesota would be the easiest, and that's on the road. So that's about as easy it's going to get from there out. Maryland coming in, I see that as a toss-up game now.
Yeah, and the Minnesota game, I would agree with you on that. They're actually kind of similar to Indiana. They're playing kind of a quarterback where they're conservative on offense. They try to run the ball. Their defense is pretty decent. They've lost some guys. The tough thing about that Minnesota game is it's a Friday night game, so it's a short week after you play Penn State at home, which could be a physically tough game. And Penn State's obviously super talented. The Maryland game, they're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde schizophrenic team. You don't know what you're going to get from week to week, but the thing that they can do is they can be explosive. I mean, they've got some guys that they can take it to the house, some running backs, and their quarterback's got a big arm. They've got some guys who can make plays. So the thing is, if offensively, if you're going 3 and out and you give them a bunch of possessions, you can only ask your defense to hold up so many times. I mean, football nowadays is geared towards offense. It's geared towards scoring. And the more times an offense is on the field, at some point they're going to take advantage of that and they're going to score. So, if Peyton Ramsey's your quarterback, so be it. But you got to be a little bit more aggressive. You've got. I mean, Rutgers probably threw the ball downfield, threw more deep shots in that game against IU than Indiana has the entire season. I mean, I think that's. I didn't count it, but I would guess that's true. And that's kind of just boggling to me. You've got to take some shots. At some point, if Ramsey's not willing to take a shot, then you got to put a guy in there who will take the shot. You've got to throw the ball downfield. You can't keep running 5 and 8 yard crossing routes. It's just not going to work. And this week, you run those plays, and there's going to be some pick sixes.
Oh, not only that. And I mentioned the Ohio State's quarterback. He's throwing 70%, but I promise you, he's not averaging 8 yards a throw. They're going down the field and stretching things out. But this is I don't see any path to any chance here in Ohio State. But the Iowa game to me is huge because that is a game. If they can steal that game, that takes so much pressure off of the team, off of Tom Allen. But to do that, they cannot play Mike DeBoring football.
they have got to open up the offense. There's no way they're going to play them straight up, throwing the ball 5 yards at a time and winning a game against a solid Big Ten team like Iowa.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, you got to try to run the ball. I get that, but sometimes, you know, sometimes you got to use the pass to set up the run. You got to soften people up a little bit. And Iowa their front seven is going to be pretty good. I mean, they had some graduation, but from last year, and they had a good defense. But the guys that are playing pretty well. They've been pretty good defensively, like they normally are. And so when you play them, you know, you're going to have to, you know, come out and, you know, and try to throw the ball. And it's interesting you mentioned the 70% completion. I think Peyton Ramsey's like top 2 or 3 in the Big Ten in completion percentage, but he's 12th in yards per completion out of, you know, 14 quarterbacks. That's, I mean, I'm not saying you have to be in the top
pathetic.
3, man. You should be in the top half. If you're completing 70%, you should be in the top half as far as how many yards you're getting per completion.
Yeah, that's terrible. But talk about the running game, a potential jolt. Word of Morgan Ellison has been practicing with the team for maybe a week or so or longer. I remember hearing that. But no word on anything in his status right now. But, man, that would be huge for Indiana to get him back.
Yeah, it would. And, I think one thing that was disappointing, but one of the most disappointing things on Saturday at Rutgers was I didn't feel like – it seemed like Stevie Scott was kind of going through the motions. Maybe it was a freshman thing, but you would think, you know, he was committed to Rutgers. They kind of had a falling out. You would have thought he's obviously a New York guy, so from that area. You would have thought he'd been super fired up, and I just thought he was – I don't know, maybe there's something up going on, but he just did not seem like the Stevie Scott that we saw against Virginia – and, you know, obviously against other teams. I just thought he didn't run maybe as hard as he has in the past, but, you know, put another guy out there. You know, if you can get a Morgan Ellison back and he's buying in and doing what he needs to do, then, you know, obviously we see what he could do when he gets a chance. He ran for almost 800 yards, 700 something last year as a true freshman. So it would be a nice 1-2 punch and definitely give you some depth at a position where guys obviously get banged up.
Matt Weaver from Peegs.com. We appreciate you, brother. Look forward to seeing you up in Columbus.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good week.
Thank you. Matt Weaver from Peegs.com. Make sure you check out his information there and the rest of the coverage of the Hoosiers as Indiana taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes this weekend, and we'll all have complete coverage for you on that. Coming up on the program yet, Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports in Columbus will join us. Of course, almost threw a mind blank. Matt was brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Stay with us. We've got a lot more coming up. As I said, Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports. He's with us next here on Indiana Sports Beat. Hey, if you're in the market for a new truck or tractor, car, or ATV, you need to be at Hollis Auction Service on November the 10th. Located on Highway 150 in Greenville, just west of Highway 335, Hollis Auction Service also needs items for the auction. If you're looking to sell, call Billy Joe Hollis today at 502-664-1606. That's 502-664-1606. Make sure you're at Hollis Auction Service in Greenville on November 10th. Today's guest is brought to you by Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center, located 5 miles north of downtown Louisville, just off of I-65 at Veterans Parkway in Clarksville. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat here on Big X Sports Radio. Jim Coyle sitting in, joined now by Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports, beat writer for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Alex, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Things are going pretty well over Columbus. Didn't start out too well this season with the off-field stuff, but on the field, they've taken care of business, man, and they're rolling.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't argue with a 5-0 start. It's where every team wants to be after 5 games. There's certainly things that they have to work on the rest of the way if they want to get where they hope to go by the end of the campaign. But, you know, big win over Penn State last week, big win in Dallas over TCU a couple weeks ago, and things are are looking good heading into the meat of the Big Ten schedule.
Speaking of that win over Penn State, huge win as a place a couple years ago where they ran into a little bit of trouble, but this year on the road they take care of business. And to me, they had, and because I had mentioned this on the air earlier, a few weeks into the season, they weren't kind of getting the same respect as some of the other teams after they had blasted their first two opponents. I'm like, why does Georgia step in front of Ohio State? Well, now all of a sudden Ohio State that engine is roaring down the tracks, and they're looking to be as one of the best in the country.
Yeah, definitely. I think, anytime you come and go get a big win in what could be the toughest environment to play in college football, in a whiteout at Happy Valley, I would put it right up there, and I know Urban Meyer certainly would too, with any environment in the country. I know LSU at night is the other one that he mentions as being right up there with Penn State in the whiteout situation. But I think anytime you go in there and get a win over a top 10 team, as I said, a couple weeks back they went down to Dallas and got a win over a top 15 ranked at the time TCU team. They kind of overcame adversity in both of those games and showed some things that even when they get down and it's not looking good, that they could still rally back and beat you. And that's the mark of some really good teams. And I think people are starting to respect that. As you said, they jumped Clemson this week, who struggled a little bit with Syracuse, and could have some questionable issues with the quarterback situation being thin over there moving forward. And then, Georgia while they've won big, I don't think they've looked all that great. They haven't really beaten anyone all that good just yet, but, they have a tough schedule coming up. So there's a lot of football left to be played across the country. We'll see how Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and all the other teams that are still in the mix, which there are many, perform kind of October, November. That's when real things start, in my opinion.
Talking with Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports in Columbus, Ohio, beat writer for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Normally when you look at another team, you're looking for weaknesses, you're looking for some areas where you can hit. Man, I just, especially offensively, Ohio State looking extraordinarily strong. Quarterback throwing 70%. He's throwing downfield, stretching the defense. They've got a 1-2 punch in the backfield that's as good as anything in the country. Don't really see any weaknesses on that side of the ball for them.
I wouldn't say that. I think, while this passing offense is certainly the best I think they've had under Urban Meyer, they have a ton of playmakers at receiver, running back, obviously the quarterback position. Dwayne Haskins has only started 5 games, basically played 5.5 games if you count the half of the Michigan game last year that he played in. He's still growing and he's still getting better, but physically, from a talent standpoint, he's definitely got the goods. Where I see, I don't want to call it a weakness, but a potential area where teams can attack is Ohio State's offensive line. It's a senior group. They got a lot of veterans, but they also have a lot of inexperience. Michael Jordan is playing center for the first time this year. Demetrius Knox is a full-time starter for the first year. Malcolm Pridgeon, who's the other guard, is a full-time starter for the first time this year. Their left tackle, Thayer Mumford's is a first-year starter as a sophomore. So Isaiah Prince, the right tackle, is the only player with really a lot of experience on the offensive line. This is now his third year starting at right tackle. Michael Jordan, this is his third year starting as well, but he's been a left guard the last 2 years. So everyone else, new position or new starter, other than Isaiah Prince at right tackle. So I think they are going through some growing pains early in the year. You saw TCU, you saw Penn State put a lot of pressure, blitz a lot. They've handled it okay. Haskins hasn't gone down a ton, but you saw in the Penn State game, I think that they got to him and they hurried him. I think they hurried him more in that game 15 times than he had been hurried combined the previous 4 games. So I think that's the way to try to beat Ohio State's offense, is to put a ton of pressure on the offensive line and Dwayne Haskins, force him to make quick decisions, take away the inside running game, and you saw the result of that. They had 14 points through 52 minutes against Penn State. Now, I think the key is you have to have the horses to be able to do that successfully, and Ohio State's offensive line, I think, measures at an average of like 6'6", 308 pounds, so not every team in America could do that, and I would say very few teams could do that, but that is, I guess, the area of weakness, if you will, for lack of a better term, on the Ohio State offense.
Early on in the season, Indiana was doing well offensively against teams. They were mixing it up fairly well with an effective running game. Surprisingly, after losing their top 2 running backs, for some freshmen stepped up. Stevie Scott
Ronnie Walker is having a good year, but the offense has been stymied of late. The passing has been relegated to just short range passing, and it's not been working too well. I guess they really kind of went into the tank in the second half against Rutgers last week.
Yeah, I think that Indiana, people probably now have some film on Peyton Ramsey, and they're seeing what they're able to do against him to be able to negate both his passing and running ability. And, it's now a game of chess, right? Indiana came out with some great game plans early in the year, and then now defensive coordinators have film and they're adjusting, and now it's on the Indiana offensive coaching staff to make those adjustments back. And I think the good news for the Hoosiers this week is they do have an opportunity against Ohio State's defense. While the defensive line is certainly excellent, even without Nick Bosa, who obviously won't play this week, I would say the big area of weakness for Ohio State on defense is the linebackers and the field safety next to Jordan Fuller. At linebacker, the Buckeyes have a ton of talent, but they are just very inexperienced, and they're being a little too over-aggressive. They're thinking too much out there. They're missing some tackles. They're taking some poor angles to the ball. They've struggled against, like last week you saw Trace McSorley scrambled for a ton of yards. The RPO has been an issue for them, both in the TCU and Penn State game, putting them in conflict. So I think that's an area where Indiana has guys that can make plays in that type of, an RPO, an option, short passing game against the linebackers, as well as the field safety, Isaiah Pryor for Ohio State. He's been the starter there. He's actually going to miss the first half of this game due to a targeting penalty he took on in the Penn State game. So Ohio State's either going to have to start Jocelyn Wint, who hasn't been so great, kind of flip-flopping with Pryor early in the year, or they're going to have to start Shaun Wade, who recently moved over from cornerback and has been the team's nickelback. I think that's what fans and what I personally think that they should do. I think they want to get there. I just don't think it's easy to kind of flip a switch in moving a guy right over to safety for the first time mid-season. But this could be a good opportunity for Ohio State to give Indiana that look with Shaun Wade out there. But I think those are still areas of weakness where Indiana can attack and maybe get on track a little bit, put some points on the board, and especially early in the game with Ohio State maybe having a little hangover effect from the Penn State game, kind of catching them off guard a little bit early, because Ohio State's defense has given up some really big, long plays this year. No one's really going 12 plays, 80 yards down the field. They've given up 3 80-plus yard plays already this year. So the opportunity for a big play is certainly there for the Hoosiers on Saturday.
Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports, beat writer for the Buckeyes, joining us right now. Defensively, Indiana has been okay this year. They had been fairly well on that side of the ball for the last couple of years and have given Ohio State very good competitive games. This year, their defense is solid. They lost a lot last year. The secondary had been probably one of their better units on that side of the ball, but they are going to be tested this week against the Buckeyes.
Yeah, they're certainly going to be tested. Ohio State, as I said, if they could keep Dwayne Haskins upright, they are almost impossible to stop because he can make every throw on the field. He has an NFL arm. He could stretch you horizontally. He could stretch you vertically. And as long as the offensive line is holding up and giving him time, Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson absolutely will do that to Indiana's defense. They're going to test them in all different ways, stretch them in all different ways, because ultimately their goal is to run the ball. And I have to imagine Tom Allen and the defensive staff's game plan is going to be to shut down J.K. Dobbins, shut down Mike Weber in the running game, and force Ohio State to kind of beat you with the arm over the top. And, while it's much easier to do that against J.T. Barrett than Dwayne Haskins, I think if you take away kind of the shorter passing game and the running game for Ohio State, that's probably your best bet to kind of force Haskins into maybe making some mistakes that can shift the game your way. But, they're going to be tested. Ohio State's offensive line is going to want to rise to the challenge against Indiana. And, again, if they could keep Haskins clean, it's going to be a really tough day for the Hoosiers defense.
Kevin Wilson, the former head coach at Indiana, the offensive coordinator there at Ohio State, is his offense settling in more now than, say, it did last year? He's in his second season there?
Yeah, well, I think first off, last year with J.T. Barrett, it was more of an Urban Meyer offense, if you will, with running the quarterback probably more often than both Kevin Wilson and Ryan Day, who's the kind of co-offensive coordinator, than they would have liked. And now that you have more of a pro-style guy that's a little bit more out of Urban's comfort zone, I think he's really handed the reins over to both Wilson and Day. And you could say Day, who was the interim head coach while Urban Meyer was suspended the first 3 games, he probably has a little bit more of a, I guess, say in the play calling. But from what I understand, it's a great collaboration between Day and Wilson, and of course Urban Meyer, game planning all week, how they're going to attack the defense. Kevin Wilson's up in the box, Ryan Day's out in the field. They're communicating all game long. But I would say both of those guys have provided elements of their own offenses to create, I would say, enhance Ohio State's already existing offense. So to answer, long story short, to answer your question, yes, the elements of Kevin Wilson and both Ryan Day's offense have certainly been more prevalent this year versus last year. And I think that's mainly due to the fact that Dwayne Haskins is a pocket passer, and Urban Meyer's kind of giving up the reins a little bit more than he does with a rushing quarterback.
Talk with Alex Gleitman, beat writer for the Buckeyes from 247 Sports. Where does this team rank in good teams that you've covered of Ohio State? Because they've had a lot of good ones, but this team is a little different. They're a little bit more offensive-minded. They're a pretty good team.
Yeah, they are. I think it's hard to say right now. I think this team will go as far as the offensive line takes them. I think you saw in 2014, the year they won the national title, that was an offensive line that was actually really, really bad for Ohio State standards in the beginning of the year when they lost to Virginia Tech and they struggled against some other teams like Navy to open the season. But that unit, as the season went on, got stronger and stronger and evolved and became the strength with obviously Ezekiel Elliott running behind them at the end of the year and helped them to a national title. So I want to see that type of progression from this offensive line before I make a true judgment. And then at the same time, the defense has been giving up too many big plays, and I think it's going to come back to bite them. So if they could get the linebackers and that safety spot shored up, that's another thing I'm looking for. So it's hard to say. I mean, I would say the 2015 team, the year after they won the title, was probably the most talented on paper that Ohio State ever had. Obviously, that 2014 team, when they won the national title, was very impressive. And, they went undefeated in Urban's first year. They lost one game in the regular season his second year. So they've had some really good teams. They went to the playoffs a couple of years ago when that defense was really good. I would say this team right now maybe would be behind 2014 and 2015 as maybe Urban's third best team in during his tenure at Ohio State. But again, I still want to see how the offensive line develops and the defense develops before, we say just how good these guys are.
Scary if this is the third best team he's had just since he's been there, because this is a very good team. It's one that I've been looking at. I think this is a team that's going to continue to get better. I think that the stars are aligned for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I think that offensively they're going to continue to improve.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the hope. And, every team should be getting better as the season goes on, obviously bearing any other major injuries outside of Nick Bosa, which, if they had Nick Bosa, that puts them at another level. But, yeah, offensively, I think, as I said, the line has to develop and continue to improve. And as Haskins gets more experience under his belt, he's just going to keep getting better and better. And, I want to see the offensive line improve. You want to see Haskins continue to improve. And I think the running game really hasn't hit its peak by any means yet. And if that gets going, I mean, as you said, it could be real scary. And, yeah, this team does have the potential to be Urban Meyer's best team at Ohio State. It's just very contingent upon how these guys develop the rest of the way.
Talking with Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports. How important is it for Ohio State, since they're carrying the banner for the Big Ten basically right now as the best team in the conference, but how important is it for them to get back to the college football playoff? The Big Ten was left out last year. The conference took a little hit, and now Ohio State's carrying that flag and getting back to that level.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important. I mean, every year when Ohio State starts their season, the expectation is to win the Big Ten and make the college football playoff, and then you see what happens from there. I think, from that expectation standpoint, it's important. I think, as you said, I don't think Urban Meyer's sitting there caring all that much about the rest of the Big Ten. If his team is good enough to make the playoff, he doesn't care if the rest of the Big Ten, how they do. But I think it is important to, continue to have the conference gain respect so that it's kind of not even there wouldn't even be a question about the SEC being left out of the playoff, right? So, I think you want to get the Big Ten to that point of respect amongst the committee and the national media and all that. But I think it's even more important because the last time Ohio State went to the playoff, they got absolutely embarrassed by Clemson, 31-0 during the 2016 season. And I think if they get back there, they certainly will want to, even if they don't win the whole thing, they will want to have a very good showing in the college football playoffs. So I think it's really important for them to kind of get back to that level. They thought they were good enough to play in it last year. Obviously, they lost a game pretty badly to Iowa that probably knocked them out. But, I think they really want to get back, and they want to show people that they are among the nation's elite with the Alabamas and the Clemsons who have been there, the last few years.
Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports, I appreciate you joining us, man. I look forward to doing it again. I thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Going to be a great game on Saturday.
Look forward to it, Alex. I'll see you over there at the shoe. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you very much. Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports, brought to you, of course, by Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center. Whether it's one truck or the entire fleet, Kentuckiana's Premier Truck Center has got your company covered for sales or service. They've got locations in Louisville and Clarksville. Give John or Aaron a call. Volvo, Evo, Cummings, or Mack specialists, but they handle everything. Give them a call. They'll take care of your truck today. Well, another big program today. Matt Weaver from Peegs.com was along. That was Alex Gleitman from 247 Sports over in Columbus, Ohio, beat writer for the Buckeyes as we get an in-close look at that program and what's going on. So that's pretty much going to lay that out for the football this weekend. I think we've got a pretty good indication of what's coming Indiana's way.
No doubt.
Coming up tomorrow on the program, we've got Terry Hutchins, so make sure you tune in tomorrow for that. That's going to wrap it up for us to here today. For Justin Kalen, I'm Jim Coyle. I'll see you on the radio.